Imagine this. You have a picture, a vision in your head of the person that you want to be. And you also have the reality of where you are right now. And in that lies an inherent discrepancy, the gap of where you are and where you want to be. The problem for a lot of people is when they see that gap, it can feel overwhelming. It brings up an inherent lack. If you focus on it too much, you might start to feel less than, incapable, like there's something wrong with you. So you want to get to be that person. But what if the secret is that you were that person all along? And all you have to do is align yourself with that possibility, and your results will flourish from there. Welcome to Change Made Easy. Changing your habits, routines, and behaviors is hard. We make it easy. I'm Paul Leviton. I help high achievers who feel stuck bridge the gap between where they are and where they want to be. Traditional self-help doesn't work. It's either too rigid, too generic, or too overwhelming. My approach is different. I simplify change by making it so easy that it can't not happen. Using my easier framework, I'll help you create habits, routines, and behaviors that stick, so you can stop struggling and start thriving. It's that easy. My guest today is Alessia Citro. She has spent years studying personal development, habits, and behavior change. She's also an author, with one of her books being titled Higher Self Habits. And I love this subtitle, Higher Self Habits, what they are, how they work, and how you can use them to step into the best version of yourself right now. And that's what I loved about this conversation with Alessia. It's not about becoming this mystical future version of yourself down the road that implies that you are less than right now. It's about being the highest version of yourself today and allowing that to flourish from now until forever and continue your personal growth journey. In our conversation, you'll hear her break down why most people approach self-development the wrong way and how small intentional habits can create radical transformation. If you've ever felt like you're forcing yourself into routines that don't stick, or you're struggling to bridge the gap between who you are and who you want to be, this episode is for you, so listen up. What are higher self habits?
Well, that might sound a little esoteric, right? Or vague, but essentially, these are habits that by doing them and doing them in the energy, the vibration of the person that you want to aspire to, they turn you into that version of you.
So, as you said, in the version of the person you want to aspire to, being that higher version of yourself, not like I want to be Beyonce, so I have the habits of Beyonce, but I want to be a better version of Paul or Alessia. How do you start to find out who that person is?
Okay, I love this question. And yes, I think Beyonce is great. I don't want to be Beyonce. I want to be the absolute best version of me who God created me to be, or the universe or spirit, or insert whatever noun you want there. The way that you do this, at least in my experience, has been to get so crystal clear on who that version of me is. And the way I've gotten to that point is by guided visualizations. Have one on the website, by the way, that you can listen to. It's in the book as well. It is by getting so detailed on how does my higher self act out in the world? How does she act when she's inconvenienced or in a hurry? How does she dress when she's at her best? What does she look like? What's the vibe? How does she eat? How does she take care of herself? Getting pretty granular, actually. It almost becomes an alter ego. And so then if you in your mind's eye shift into this alter ego and you go out in the world and you focus on being instead of just doing, well, that's where the magic happens.
I love that granularity where it's not just some big vision board. I want to be a millionaire or an entrepreneur. It's the specifics of the day-to-day minutia. But is there an aspect of this that can actually feel almost separating, right? If that person is not who I am, and I have this big dream of future Paul who is a successful this and has a great that and this and that, and it's just like, then I feel like, but what do I have now? And it feels like it's fake or it's not real. Can that actually demotivate me?
It can. I'm so glad you asked this. So most people measure their progress by looking at the end result they hope to have, and then where they are now. And like, okay, how far away am I from that? But that is not a great way to measure progress, because as you evolve and as you ascend into a better version of you, those goalposts keep moving. The ideal continues to get higher and higher. So, a better way to measure your progress is actually looking at where you've been versus where you are now. You know where you were, you know you are now. It is way more motivating, way more fulfilling to look at it that way, because I'm willing to bet you're probably a very different person right now than you were like a year ago, per se, right? So instead of letting this demotivate you, and this is not a fake it till you make it thing, by the way. I like that phrase in a way, but I also kind of hate it. We don't want to be faking anything. We want to be doing this authentically and with a lot of integrity. So the highest version of me, well, she does things differently than me, yet that doesn't mean that I'm separate from her. It's almost like if I continued to act in the way that would get me there, I will be her. I'm not a different person than her. I just haven't evolved that far yet. So it's looking at it as more of like a baby step, and then looking backwards to say, wow, okay, I've really come very far. I just got to keep going, versus like, that's unattainable. I'm never going to get there. This is a waste of my time. And I feel like shit because I'm not where I want to be.
What you were just talking about, judging yourself, or I don't even like that word, judging yourself, but using where I am now compared to my past as the barometer, as opposed to where I am now and where I want to go. For people listening, I don't know if you may have read this book. It sounds like you have, but there's a book called The Gap and the Gain, which is one of my favorite books of all time that talks about this concept extensively. And it was a really big game changer for me. So just for anyone listening, I definitely highly recommend that. So when you see that, I'm looking back and I see how far I've come, and that's motivating to me. As you said, I'm a different person now than I was a year ago. So extrapolating on that, a year from now, I can be a completely different person. But still, when I'm looking forward at the idealized version of myself that I want to be, it's the vision board me or whatever it is, there is a leap that I have to take. And that can be the scariest part. I can know what I want. I can know what I have to do, and I can have all of that stuff. And when you get up to the edge where you have to take that final jump, it still is scary. And there isn't really much you can do to get around that. So how do you get through that sticking point or that hesitation?
Yeah, this is a great question. Okay, so a couple things that y'all should know about me. Okay, yes, I wrote a book called Higher Self Habits. And I am like the least likely person to write a book of that title, because I bristle at routine, regimens. I love to be spontaneous. I'm a free spirit. I want to have fun. I want to feel free. Okay. So why did I write the book? Well, because it's what I figured out I finally needed in order to have all the things I just mentioned without my life falling into disarray. So having said all that, you should also know I am a go big or go home, all or nothing type of gal. And it turns out that's not really a very good way to live. So I am working on also unwinding that and being a lot more mindful about the teeny tiny little steps. So while yes, would it be a huge leap for you to go from where you are now to this idealized version of you? Yes, but you're going to baby step it. And the reason you do that is twofold. One, that is how you can actually create change. If you start to, and I do believe in quantum leaping, don't get me wrong, but if you just decide like, okay, I've never worked out a day in my life and I'm going to go do an Ironman, probably not a good idea. You might want to start with just like taking a walk around the block. Why? Because your identity needs a chance to catch up to this version of you. If you go from couch potato to Ironman, I mean, is that possible? Absolutely. But it's not going to happen overnight. You got to let your identity catch up and become someone who consistently works out to accomplish that, right? So how can you make it really, really incrementally small? The other reason why you want to do that is so you can have a baseline you can maintain come hell or high water. You know, I've got a 5-year-old, I'm married, I run 2 businesses. Like, shit's crazy over here. Sometimes I get sick because I'm a human. I need to have baseline habits that I can do no matter what is happening, just to keep that habit wired in and consistent on the days that I can do the full shebang, I do the full shebang. On the days I can even do more than that, I do more than that. But having a really tiny version of the habits that will get you to that end result, that's really, really key, because you've got to have that baseline and you got to let your identity inch up with you.
Yeah, I totally love that. And it's funny, you used a phrase that I use a lot, or I used to use a lot more too, especially when I was a personal trainer, which is be the person who does the thing, right? A lot of people think that you start by running a marathon, but instead it's like you said, in that version of yourself, who does marathon running me look like? What are their daily routines like? Does marathon running me stay up until 1 o'clock in the morning watching Netflix, or do they go to bed early so that they can wake up in the morning and go for a run? So it's not just doing the running, it's adapting the identity and the habits of the person that you want to be, or the person that you've chosen to be. This doesn't have to be aspirational. You become something by choosing it. The first part of any action is a choice, and simply making a choice and committing to something is something in and of itself. So I think that that's so powerful. But I want to know, now that we're kind of on the topic of habits, what do you see as the most important component of building habits and new habits and healthy habits? Hey, real quick, we'll be back to the show in just a few seconds, but right now I have to ask you for a huge favor. If you're getting value out of this episode so far, take 2 seconds and share it with a friend. I mean, right now, literally, hit the little share button and send it in a text to your roommate or your cousin or your mom or your brother or your sister. Seriously, spread the love. If you like what you're hearing, then that's the best way that you can show support for this show. Because maybe you're like Eliza Kay, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Or you're like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen." Don't you want to share this awesomeness with your friends and family? Don't be a gatekeeper. It only takes a second. It helps me grow and reach a new audience, and you seem like a genius friend who recommends new, awesome podcasts. We all win. All right, go send that text, and now let's get back to the show.
Right. So when you are looking to build habits, the first thing is you got to know why you're doing it. Is this something that you actually really desire to do, or is it something that you think you should do? I always joke on my tombstone, it will say, stop shoulding on yourself. Stop shoulding on yourself. Seriously. No more, oh, I should read that book. Oh, I should go work out. Do you want to or don't you? So that's the first step. Then getting really intentional about it too, because intention kind of just sets the tone and it's going to direct where all your energy goes. And then it's got to be meaningful to you. Once all of those have been established, the way to go about building healthy habits is you want to look at the 4 components of every single human behavior. I do not care what it is. All behaviors have these 4 components. So you can remember it with the acronym ACTS, ACTS. So the first component is ambition. Do you have a desire to actually do this behavior? That's also why you want to eliminate all the shoulds, because if you don't really want to do it, you're already fighting an uphill battle. The second component is capability. Can you do this behavior or not? And this is the one to focus on, by the way. Third component is trigger. Do you have a prompt or a cue to do the behavior? Initially, when a habit is brand new and you're trying to wire it in, that prompt or cue is absolutely critical, or you will not do it. And then the final thing is satisfaction. We only do something if we get a reward from it. Sometimes that reward looks like avoiding pain or embarrassment or whatever it might be. So when you begin to create habits, the first thing you want to do, and all you overachievers, this is for you, you want to make it as easy as possible. I think so many of us, myself included, we think that there's this like nobility and like something being really challenging and a struggle and, oh, I got to work hard. Okay, all that's great. But if you want a habit or a behavior to turn into a habit, you have to make it really easy. It takes so little friction for you to not do something. The example I always give is I would not foam roll, even though my hands would go numb from pseudothoracic outlet syndrome, because my hair tie to put my hair up so my hair wouldn't get pulled doing the foam roll, it was like 15 seconds down the hall in my bathroom. It wasn't in the room my foam roll in. That sounds like no friction at all, right? But it was just enough. I'm willing to bet the thing keeping you from doing the habit you say you want to create, it might be that small and stupid. So we always start with capability. Alternatively, you want to break a habit, make it harder to do. So that's like the high level, but once you know the formula, you can really begin to tweak it. Notably, work with the ambition part last, because motivation is a very fair weather friend. If you have ever joined a gym on January 1st and stopped going 3 weeks later, or you know someone who's done that, this is proof of that concept.
Yeah, I mean, we're speaking the same language here. That's the whole concept behind the show, right? Change made easy, because that's exactly what I found, is that everyone thinks that it's doing the hard thing and like you got to grind through it and white knuckle it and yada yada. And it's like, yeah, it's going to be hard. Like, I'm not saying you can get through life just doing easy things, but the goal is to take the hard thing and make it easy. Find a way that you're not having to white knuckle through it, that you're doing it. The word I use is enthusiasm, that you're doing things with enthusiasm because you want to. That avoids the shoulds. Yeah. So I'm right there with you, but I would love for you to walk us through. I love that ACTS, ACTS. Let's say a habit like, everyone says I'm supposed to get more sleep, right? I've been staying up until I've been getting 5 or 6 hours. My personal trainer told me that I'm not building as much muscle because I need to get 8 hours of sleep. And it's just been, I've never gotten that much sleep in my life. Like, how do I start looking at this through your framework?
Oh yeah. Okay. So there's a few things you need to do. You got to analyze all of the inputs that go into a good night's sleep. So let's name some of them. You might not be sleeping well if you are dehydrated, because if you're dehydrated, you wake up in the middle of the night, you need a drink of water. Alternatively, if you're drinking too much before bed, you might have to wake up and go pee, and that can interrupt your sleep. That's one thing that you'd look at. You might want to consider, am I, on my phone or on my computer or watching TV right before bed and the blue light's keeping me up? Like, what are the things, if you look at what is making it hard for you to get the 8 hours of sleep, what are those things? The acronym I use for this, by the way, I love acronyms, did you notice, is WTF. And it's not the one you're thinking. It's where's the friction? So you sort of want to do like a diagnostic, first of all. So then when you look at that, okay, what else needs to happen? You probably need to go to bed earlier. So can you make like a wind down routine that sort of maybe even romanticizes it and makes you look forward to going to bed? Maybe that's lighting a candle and having a warm bath, and it doesn't need to be this grandiose, by the way. I'm just giving you some examples. Is it, taking magnesium, having hot tea? Like, maybe think of ways to make it more appealing if it's not at the moment. And then I think the other piece of it would be, okay, looking at maybe things you need to tweak in your environment. Is it too light in your room? Is that what's waking you up? Is it too noisy? Do you need a sound machine? All of these components, that's how I would begin to look at the overall picture. And this would go for any habit. Another one that's really common, I'll just riff on this really quick. I have yet to meet a single person who doesn't struggle with their phone and using it in either the middle of the night when they wake up, or right before they go to bed, or in the morning. And a solution to this, I posted a reel about this a couple weeks ago, and it's like so stupidly simple. Get a 6-inch charging cord, because you can't scroll on your phone when your phone is plugged into a 6-inch cord. That makes it harder to do, right? So now instead of where's the friction, how can you add friction? So those are just some examples, but that's how I would begin to approach a much broader behavior of good sleep.
Yeah, that's great. And as you said, that's such a funny but useful tactic, that the shorter charging cord, increasing the friction, right? Decrease the friction between the habit that you're trying to make happen and increase the friction for the habits that you want to stop doing. And then you can also stack these things. So for me, the scrolling is a big one, right? It's like I literally get nauseous when I look at my weekly screen time. But so what I started doing is like, okay, like a big thing for me is also getting out of bed at the first alarm, no snoozing. This is something I'm very big on, not because I care about getting out of bed or anything like that, not because it's like you have to wake up at 5 a.m. or some dumb thing like that. For me, it's all about keeping promises to yourself, right? Yes. And it's like, if I snooze my alarm, that to me is sending a message to my subconscious. The very first action I took that morning was saying that I don't value the promise I made to myself the night before. If I set my alarm for 6 a.m. and I snooze it at 6 a.m., like just set your alarm for 6:08. If you want to sleep later, that's fine. But if you're snoozing your alarm, you're saying like the decision I made last night, which is to set this alarm, I don't care about that. And like to me, that's the like my number one rule, right? So, but the reason I bring that up is because so I habit stack. I don't want to be on my phone so much, so I charge my phone on the other side of the room, away from my bed. That makes the friction of scrolling on my phone all night much harder. And now in the morning, when my alarm goes off, I'm forced to get up out of bed and go turn my alarm off, which is on the other side of the room, increasing the friction of just pulling the covers back over me and snoozing the alarm. Of course, I still can. None of this is foolproof. It's just making it a little bit harder, and that's all of this stuff, right? The word is friction. It's not a force field, and it's not going to 100% of the time stop it. But as you said, that little thing of the hair tie being in the other room can be enough. This is why Netflix, I don't know if you've noticed this, I feel like the time in between, like, are you still watching to go to the next episode, has gotten shorter and shorter because they're reducing that friction time. It's like almost instantly. I don't even have time to pick up the remote and hit pause before the next episode is starting. And I'm like, oh, well, I guess I'm watching another episode. So these little things that happen almost instantaneously can have a big effect on us. So it's starting to take back control of those. And something that I would love your input on, because I've heard you talk about this differently, is the difference between power and force.
Oh, yeah. All right. So I kind of look at force is like the way that it sounds, right? It's like you're trying to make something happen. You're trying to fit a square peg in a round hole, perhaps. You're kind of going like against the flow of life, meeting resistance. And I know there's going to be resistance with a lot of things that are worth doing. So don't misunderstand me there. But power is really leaning into like the flow of life and like what you want to be doing already. And like what is meant for me, Alessia, is not maybe what is meant for you, Paul, right? We are going to have different things that light us up, different things that are optimal for us. Going into that more and really getting rid of the rest, that's where the magic happens.
Yeah, it's interesting as you're saying that. I'm getting the picture. I love the metaphor of a river analogy, and like going with the flow of the river versus trying to swim upstream, right? And force is trying to swim upstream and carve out your own path. But it's like the hubris to think that you are stronger than nature. And then how much easier does life become when you go, okay, I can just it's not about only going where the river takes you, but it's about using the natural force of the universe, of life, of God, of whatever you want to picture it as, can help. It can either, again, it can be a help or it can be a hindrance. It can be a friction that you go against, or it can be something that you go with. So I love that distinction and kind of using that as a way to make things easier, because that's what this is all about. But another thing that I've seen people kind of stick with, especially when we talk about habits, is like, or sticking points, I should say, around habits, is people think that there are certain habits that they quote unquote need. A lot of times, again, these come in the forms of morning routines or things like that, evening routines, morning routines. So how do you see these type of things? Like, is there a formula that we can find out that's going to like unlock something for us? Is there a specific way that we need to set things up if we want to be able to reach that higher self that you've been talking about?
Okay, I'm going to rant. You ready for this? Okay, here's the rant. I think that having your day start off on the right foot is paramount because it primes the rest of your day. Do I think that you need to have this very regimented, drawn out, elaborate routine to make your day start off on the right foot? I absolutely do not. And in fact, I think sometimes the expectation that we need to have this grandiose routine makes us resent it and go back the other way. So here's what I like to suggest. So first of all, Paul, I'm stealing the snooze button thing. I had never thought about it that way, but you're exactly right. It is about keeping promises to yourself. So if you can start your day that way with just being intentional, being open to receive, maybe your morning routine in this season of life, if you got a lot of shit going on, maybe it is just mindfully sipping that first sip of your hot coffee or your hot tea or your hot lemon water, whatever you like to start the day with the intention to receive and have a great day. Maybe that's your baseline morning habit, right? If you want to go the full like miracle morning routine, that's great. I actually did the miracle morning for a while. It was phenomenal for me as I was getting out into the morning routine thing, but it doesn't work for me anymore. So, what if you instead looked at the miracle morning, which is comprised of 6 elements, and SAVERS is his acronym for it. So, it's silence, which would be, meditation or prayer, affirmations, visualization, exercise, reading, and scribing, which is journaling. What if you looked at Savers as a menu that you got to pick from based on what you were vibing that day? And what if instead of 10 minutes for each of these, maybe you just take 3 deep breaths and that's your silence for the morning? So I think you really get to make your morning whatever works for you and just make it minimal, add on more if and when you want to. But if I could just make a plug for the habit of making your bed, like start with that. Start with that and not snoozing, and then add on more later. But I don't think that we need to have this big grandiose thing. I think morning routines are a bit overrated in general. Just how about this? How about you don't watch the news first thing in the morning because it's 27% more likely to make you feel like you had a bad day? And how about you go look at the sky before you look at your phone?
Yeah, I love that. And again, that's making it easier, right? It's like these, like you said, grandiose, these big things. And again, going back to what I was saying about charge my phone on the other side of the room, that makes me get out of bed when I don't snooze. I'm out of bed now. Now I make my bed. When I talk about a morning routine, again, this is all just about, to me, a morning routine is more about the message that I'm sending about
Yep.
checking boxes and doing for myself. So I used to take people through a specific morning routine, but now again, I almost let them, as you said, choose your own adventure. But the point is that you pick something intentionally and you stick to it. So even if that is wake up with no snooze, get up, touch my feet to the floor, say an affirmation, make my bed, drink my tea mindfully, look at the sky. That's 5 things that take 0 time, all things you would have done already. But now it's this signal you're sending to your brain, which is, I already did my morning routine. I already did 5 things on my morning routine. I've started the day with power, with enthusiasm. I've taken control of the day rather than letting the day control me. And I think that's what this is all about. There's no, I tell my clients all the time, like if there was one morning routine that just worked for everyone, then everyone would do that and the world would be a different place. If there was anything that worked for everyone, everyone would do that. I was, same thing with working out, with diet. I'm like, if there was one workout that just worked, everyone would do that. There's no secret, like it's not, there's just no one thing that works for everyone. And that's why, knowing yourself and being open to experimenting is so powerful. And I'm curious because you said a few minutes ago that you are the person who is more spontaneous. You are the person who wants to be able to not be tied down by routines and structures and things like that. So how is it that you became the person who's writing about habits and who is preaching structure and building that into your life?
Yeah, I laugh every time, I talk about this because it's like, how many times can you bang your head against the wall and like touch a hot stove and get burned before you finally figure out like, oh, maybe I shouldn't do that anymore. So honestly, the way that it came to pass, I had been in tech sales for almost a decade, worked at, great companies, like including Salesforce, Google. I leave those roles and I had been already in the bad habits of like a boom and bust cycle. So like maybe some of you listening who are in sales can relate to this. It's like, I blow out my quota. It's a new month. I'm going to kind of take it easy for a little bit. Oh shit. End of the month, end of the quarter's approaching. I better do a crazy call blitz instead of just maintaining like an even keel throughout, right? That's too boring for me. I couldn't do that. So what happens when I leave the corporate world? Well, when you become an entrepreneur and your own boss, personal development is no longer optional. It is a requirement. And so I pretty quickly figured out, oh, this business thing's going to be a really wild ride. I mean, it already is a wild ride, but like this is going to be way more painful than it needs to be if I don't figure out some like basic fundamentals that I'm going to do day in and day out, because I can't hide behind a big company logo anymore. It's me, myself, and I now. So I got to master the 6 inches between my ears and like get out of my own way. I'm finally sick of my own bullshit. So like, let's figure out what this looks like in a way that works for me. And ultimately, how I ended up down that path, I read Ego is the Enemy by Ryan Holiday, and that was like a kick in my ass. And then from there, it just branched out into like Atomic Habits, Tiny Habits by Dr. BJ Fogg, all of these different books. Oh, and he's holding up Ego is the Enemy right now. Yeah, it's an amazing book. Go read that if you haven't yet. So I just kept following the breadcrumbs of the universe, and this became really obvious. And it made me do a lot of introspection. So, like, I didn't mention this yet. I had a 7-figure online wine business that blew up during COVID. And as a result, I think many people could relate to this. I began drinking way too much. Um, I would claim, oh, I'm doing research and development. Yeah, right. So I finally was like, you know what? This is the domino habit, as I call it, that knocks down all these undesirable behaviors. So you know what I got to do? I got to quit drinking. So that was that huge transformation there was like, oh, if I could do that, what else can I do? And so that's really where it began. So yeah, thank you, COVID, for kicking me in my ass and making me quit the corporate world and wake up.
Yeah, it's great. I love that, and kind of hearing how you put the pieces together. I love that you brought up BJ Fogg, Tiny Habits. So many people bring up Atomic Habits on this show, which is great. Obviously it is the book that it is for a reason, but Tiny Habits to me is, if you had to read one book on habits, that is the one that's like everything else is just expanding on that. You mentioned that as you were going through this, you had your career in sales and you jumped into entrepreneurship. And as you said, you have to be in self-development if you're going to be an entrepreneur, which I totally agree with. But my question then is, what of this could you have used when you were still in that life? So for the people listening who aren't entrepreneurs, right? Like you said, you were forced into it. But in a world where you weren't forced into it, what were the lessons that you could have used in sales, in a regular 9 to 5 business job? Because I feel like that's what most people are doing. And I don't want to lose sight of that. It's like, well, like, yeah, get up and go for a 2-hour run and then lift and then cook your breakfast. It's like, yeah, well, wouldn't it be nice? I can do that as an entrepreneur, but like most people cannot. So what are like some of the lessons or things that you wish you would have had back then?
Mm. Well, okay. I think I would start with the personal side of things. Like, how does my morning need to go for me to be in an energy that is going to magnetize everyone that I have a meeting with or call today? Because being in sales, you don't get to be grumpy unless you want to not sell anything. So I would start there. And then maybe that's like looking at your teeny tiny morning routine or like things that you could prime yourself with, like not watching the news. I'm like, that's a forever soapbox for me. Don't watch the news in the morning. Then from there, what I would look at, okay, what are the inputs that I need to get the outputs that I desire in this job? Whether it's the amount of commission I want to make, the quotas I need to hit. One thing I actually did when I was in corporate, I would reverse engineer my goals. Like if I need to bring in $250,000 in deals this quarter, whatever it was, how many calls does that it require me making? How many meetings? Like just work it back from like your closed one in Salesforce speak to like making that initial call or email. And then from there, okay, what are like the baseline habits that I need to create? Is that making 10 calls a day? Is that sending 10 emails a day? Is it both? Is it, if getting promoted is something that I want to do? Like, can I have a skip level with my boss's boss? Can I network with someone at the company that's in a different role than me? So, zooming out, reverse engineer, and then what is like the baseline of that you have to do day in and day out? And then if you want to be an overachiever and do more, what does that look like too?
Yeah, I love that. And just as you're talking, all that I'm thinking is that's exactly what you said in the beginning about who is the person that I want to be, and who is Alessia in the future that is the highest version of myself, and then how do I reverse engineer that? So we see, and people who listen to the show will know something I say all the time, everything is the same. The way to be successful in business is the way that you're successful in life. And that's, if you talk fitness, and it's the exact same thing. I want to have a X pound deadlift or run a marathon. Okay, how do I reverse engineer that? So all of the rules are the same. And it's so obvious when I say it like that, but so often we get caught up. We're like, yeah, of course I know how to hit my sales quota. You start with a monthly goal and then you reverse engineer it, and then you break it down to what I have to do for daily action steps and deliverables and blah, 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 blah. And then it's like, okay, well, how do you lose weight? They're like, I have no clue. It's like, well, it's probably the exact same thing, just in a different category. So I appreciate that. And I always love seeing those things that kind of cross over into different genres, because again, it's obvious when we shed light on it, but so often the most obvious things are also the things that are easy to ignore or easy to just gloss over. So I think that's a great
Yeah.
tip. The last few questions that I want to leave you with, I have two questions that I ask every guest. The first question is, what is the change that you want to see in the world?
Unity. And expanding on that, I'm a big reader now. I joke I traded booze for books, and it's true. I read a book last February that changed me at a cellular level. So, like a cellular and a soul level, right? That book was the Conversations with God trilogy, specifically book one. And that book reminded me of a truth that I had forgotten, which is that we are all splinters of the same whole. And I think the people who keep us divided, it's in their interest to do that, which is why they do. The rest of us, we got to come back into remembrance that you winning means I'm winning. I'm winning means you're winning. How can we lift each other up, be nicer to each other, and come together to have a much happier, more peaceful world? And I think that's an inside job. That starts with us.
Doesn't everything, huh? So I love that answer. My last question, if you had one action step that people can start right now, today, as soon as this podcast ends, as soon as they take their headphones out, to start making whatever habit they're trying to work on, whatever thing they're trying to improve in their life, just a little bit easier, what would it be?
I would say it's getting really clear. If you were to just close your eyes and imagine the version of you that you were created to be, because, the odds of any of us being here is like, it's like winning the lottery, but like exponentials of that. It's so crazy that any of us are here on spaceship Earth on this, rock spinning through space, but here we are. So, how can you close your eyes and imagine who it is that God, the universe, spirit, whatever you want to call it, created you to be? What is that feeling when you are embodying that version of you? And then whatever behavior, whatever habit, whatever thing you've been avoiding, you have to go do. How can you approach that as that version of you? And just watch what happens. You're going to see it's a different vibe.
Before you go, I just have to ask you for a huge favor. If you enjoyed or got value from this episode at all, then take a moment and leave a rating and review in the podcast app that you're listening or watching on. If you like the show and you want me to continue to create more episodes and be able to get awesome guests that will help make changing your life easier, then this is the best way you can show support. You can leave a 5-star review on iTunes like Eliza K, who said, "This podcast is both warm and inviting, but real enough to push and motivate me." Thank you, Eliza. Or you can be like Dalton, who said, "Paul is an amazing host, and his podcast is a must listen." Thank you, Dalton. And thank you to all of the over 100 people who have taken the time to rate and review this show 5 stars on iTunes, or the dozens who have left 5-star reviews on Spotify. It only takes a minute, and it helps me grow, it helps me reach a new audience, and it lets me know that this is helping someone, which just feels good. All you have to do is go to the show page of whatever app you're listening to and hit the little 5 stars. Or go to the comments section on YouTube and boom, that's it. And if you really want to show love, take a screenshot when you do it and tag me in your stories on social media at Change Made Easy, and I'll shout you out in an upcoming episode. All right, go leave that rating, and I'll see you back here every Tuesday and Thursday with new episodes of Change Made Easy.